This guy stops in the middle of the road with his hazard lights on. This guy won't yield. That guy won't let you go. That guy passes in front of you. That guy goes 3 lanes of traffic all in one shot. How does anybody do this? Look, if the Red Sox aren't going to play Yoshida and Devers as they're about to get swept, then we might as well just give up and go home. The opinions on all your favorite teams. I'm glad that Mac Jones looks better. That's really important. He needs to look better. But if it were a video game, he'd still have an overall rating of 76, and that ain't cutting it.
This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
What's up, everybody? Brady Farkas Show here on a Friday, a beautiful Friday. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a beautiful Saturday or Sunday, but a beautiful Friday. Happy to have you in with us here on DEV. We're brought to you by Fecto Homes, your total home solution in Montpelier. The text line is open. AR Auto Sales text line, 802-585-3026, ARAutosales.com, down there on North Main Street in Barrie. Lots to get to. Buster Olney is going to stop by with us at 5:45. He wasn't with us yesterday, so we talked baseball with Buster today. Ben Stinar from the Fast Break team over in part of the Sports Illustrated group was with us right after the Eastern Conference Finals about a month ago. He'll be back with us today. Talk a little Celtics draft and the Celtics trade of Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis. We got takes from Brad Stevens. We got takes from Celtics insiders, NBA pundits. We got all of it. And again, you can get in 802-585-3026. The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show were brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center with locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. The draft was absurd last night. The NBA draft was absurd last night. Like, I hate the way the draft is done, period. And then I hate how long the draft was last night. Look, I love the NFL draft, but going till 2 a.m. is absurd. Like, I went to bed at 1:30 last night, and the draft had just ended. That's ridiculous. Nobody's watching. If you are watching, I feel sorry for you that you're still watching at that point. The NBA draft needs to figure out something different, right? Started at 7 o'clock. That would be first and foremost. If you want to have it all in one day, start it at 7, okay? Take an hour off it there on the front side. Otherwise, do what the NFL does and have night 1 on one day and night 2 on the next, because this is absurd. I mean, I got home last night. I picked it up at probably about pick 15, right? Followed on my phone, first half of the draft, first half of the first round, pick 15 or so. I went home and watched. I'm like, okay, Celtics got 25. I watched for an hour. Celtics don't make a pick. They trade back. Okay, now they've got 31 or whatever it is. Okay, they don't make a pick. And I gave up. I did not stay to watch the Celtics pick. I watched the draft for over an hour. I didn't see a Celtics pick, and I'm just going to follow it on my phone at this point. I'm not going to sit here and watch this. Ridiculous length to the draft. Going from 8 o'clock until 1:30 in the morning, there is no need for it. Make the picks quicker. Limit the time, have a round here and a round on this day, start it earlier, all of the above. I don't care. But seriously, 802-585-3026, how many of you did any of you watch the draft past midnight last night? Because I gave up on it at about 11:15. I was like, I'm done with it. Okay? It was no longer interesting to me. And I was like, I will see the Celtics pick scrolling through Twitter. And that's what I did at 1:30 last night. I have no use for this anymore. The NFL draft, I understand that their goal is to monopolize all of our fandom, right? That's their goal. So they make the draft 3 days long just for the sake of that. But they've also limited the amount of time we have to invest in it on a per-day basis, which is better in terms of ratings as well. So they want you watching all 3 days, but at least they've made it so you only have to watch from 8 to 11:30 or whatever on night 1 instead of 8 until 1:30. I mean, that was a joke. Celtics took Jordan Walsh out of Arkansas. I'll give you a little bit on him later in the show. I don't know how much he's going to contribute, especially early. Some people say that he can contribute right away and maybe help replace Marcus Smart. That'd be great. Don't know if it'll happen, but that would be great. Victor Wembanyama went number 1. We knew that was going to happen. The 7'4", 7'5" Frenchman went to San Antonio. Obviously a good lineage there in terms of French players in San Antonio with Tony Parker. And just a real interesting point. I was talking to somebody yesterday, said Wembanyama is a little overhyped, right? Like best draft prospect ever, really? I will say this. The expectations on Victor Wembanyama are absurd, right? I don't know that he's not as good as they're saying, right? I have no way of knowing that. I'm just saying to sit here and say, like, hey, we expect him to be Jordan or LeBron good, that's ridiculously unfair, and that's ridiculous pressure. As far as most hyped, is he overhyped? Let me just say this to you. If Victor Wembanyama were an American, you would have seen the hype machine coming at age 14. Okay, and you would have seen LeBron-style hype. Like, LeBron is the most hyped draft prospect, certainly of my lifetime, and probably the most hyped draft prospect ever, given that his games were on ESPN. There was more technology. It was easier to market guys when LeBron was coming up versus Jordan or Len Bias or Patrick Ewing or anyone else that you think was really highly rated coming out of college or high school or whatever. LeBron is by far the most hyped NBA prospect of my life. He's by far the most hyped team sports prospect of my life. But if Victor Wembanyama were an American and we had followed him from 14 on, he would have been on that level too. Right? He's not on the LeBron level because he's not American. Because we didn't know about him. Just like we didn't know about Luka. Right? If Luka had come up through the American system and played AAU, we would have heard about him. If Victor Wembanyama had been an American, we would have heard about him. We would have seen him on AAU, and his games would have been on TV, and he would have been on Sports Illustrated and all that, just like LeBron was. So it's certainly unfair expectations. You just said it's unfair expectations for Wembanyama. As far as the draft hype, if he were American, we would have seen the same thing we saw for LeBron. Okay, Peter says, I agree with you, Brady. I didn't watch. The NBA draft lacks urgency. They need to copy what the NFL draft does and make quick picks on weekend. Maybe the NBA can cap it at 10 minutes. I don't even know what the NBA's clock is. I didn't even look. I'm just like, this is taking forever. And the thing I hate most about it, and I understand why, but all of these picks get made, and a lot of them aren't even for the teams that these guys are going to play for. Like, I'm watching, and the pick gets made by Sacramento when the kid goes up and he shakes Adam Silver's hand and he gets the Sacramento hat. And we know, everybody knows he's been traded to Dallas, but nobody can act like that. He's got to wear the Sacramento hat and he's got to pretend. And the reason why is because the league year hasn't started yet. So none of these trades can happen until the league year has started. So all of these trades are unofficial at this point. But in the NFL, when you trade a draft pick, the league year has started, so the picks are official and the trades are official. And we know that when Jacksonville has traded a second-round pick, that that Buffalo's gotten that pick, and this guy's being picked by Buffalo. We know that. In the NBA, some of these guys are getting picked like, well, it was originally Memphis's pick, and then it was Indiana's pick, and then it was Boston's pick, and now it's going to land in Cleveland. And this guy's got to think he was drafted by one of those three teams. Like, how do you even know who you're playing for? I get it that the league year is not official yet, but it's absurd trying to follow along who's actually got the pick and where a guy's actually going. Kyle in South Burlington. You forget how much a 7'4" center by the name of Ralph Sampson from Virginia came out in the 80s. I wasn't born in the 80s. I was born in 1989, the end of it. So no, I don't forget how hyped Ralph Sampson was. I literally don't know how hyped Ralph Sampson was. But I'm telling you that LeBron was more hyped than Sampson, who was more hyped and was more hyped than Jordan because of the era that he played in. It doesn't mean that at the time we thought LeBron was better than those guys. It's just the product of the time he played it. And if Wembanyama, look, Zion was massively hyped. Okay, the hype train was out on Zion, maybe as much as LeBron. And if Wembanyama had grown up in this country and this culture of basketball, we would have seen him be more hyped than both of them. But because it came a little more out of left field to people, people are struck back by all the commentary on him. If he had grown up here, You would have seen it coming for the last 4 or 5 years. Texter says, they say NBA has 5 minutes a pick, 150 minutes at the very least. Well, no, that's 300 minutes at the very least. Is it not? That's what we got, right? Because you got 30 picks for the first round times 5. That'd be 150 minutes. That would be nearly 3 hours. Then another nearly 3 hours for the back half of the draft. And that would get us to the 6 hours that we got, basically 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. That's 6 hours. So it's ridiculous. Texter says, you're sorry, Brady. You're sorry. You said you're sorry if anybody watched the draft, but you just said you watched the draft. I said, I'm sorry if anybody watched the draft beyond midnight. Okay. I did not watch the draft beyond midnight. I watched from about 9 until 11:15. And I made sure I was flipping back and forth between the great college baseball game between Wake Forest and LSU. I don't know if any of you are into the College World Series. That's why we haven't talked about it. But the College World Series is one of my favorite events. And last night's game was great. Wake Forest, the 1 seed, goes out. LSU hits a walk-off 2-run homer in the bottom of the 11th inning off Wake Forest's closer, who comes in, throws 1 pitch, and gets taken deep for a 2-run tater to end the game. I feel awful for that pitcher, but what a great game that was. What a great game that was. Tex says there was a ton of hype around Ralph Sampson, but Wembanyama is a better prospect. Well, okay. I believe that. So when we talk to Ben Stinar of the Sports Illustrated group at 6:30, we'll ask him a little bit about the hype train on things. It's mostly a Celtics-related interview, but we'll ask him about the hype train on things. I want to talk to Buster Olney, though. We got to get some baseball in. Red Sox split with the Twins. They're taking on the White Sox beginning for a series tonight in Chicago. Our coverage 7:10, first pitch 8:10. Buster Olney of ESPN stops by next. It's the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes here on WDEV, AM and FM, at WDEVradio.com.
The right way and the wrong way to fight off mosquitoes. Karate chop in the air, in a public place, in front of your kids and their friends is the wrong way. Using Stem mosquito repellent is the right way. Stem effectively repels mosquitoes by harnessing active ingredients found in plants like lemongrass and peppermint, making it safe for use as directed around people and pets. Stem, rooted in nature, optimized by science, and embarrassment-free. Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be signs that your digestive system isn't working at its best? But taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil supports your daily digestive health using a special plant-based fiber called psyllium. Psyllium works by forming a gel in your digestive system to trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Metamucil's gelling action also helps to promote heart health and slows down sugar absorption to promote healthy blood sugar levels. Start feeling lighter and more energetic by taking Metamucil every day.
The WDEV studio is sponsored by Sticks and Stuff and Swanton Lumber, Vermont's largest independent home center, powered by Marvin Doors and Windows. Go to sticksandstuff.com for store locations and hours.
Hi, this is Anson Tibbetts, co-host of For the Birds, heard Saturdays on WDEV. Each week, Chip Darmstadt and I discuss bird sightings, bird counts, and activity at your feeder. You also can listen anytime to podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Join us Saturdays at 7:30 and 12:15 for the Birds. 28 years on WDEV AM and FM and streaming at WDEVradio.com.
Your chance to be part of the show is on the text line at 802-585-3026.
All the insight into everything going on in baseball. It's time for a weekly conversation with ESPN baseball insider and Vermont native Buster Olney.
I'm just about ready to bet the family farm in Vermont.
On the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show, right here on this Friday, WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com. A lot of NBA draft talk today, a lot of Celtics talk today, but got to deviate, of course, for a little baseball. Couldn't talk to Buster Olney at ESPN yesterday. We make room for Buster today, of course. White Sox and Red Sox tonight. Our coverage begins at 7:10. First pitch, 8:10. Buster, happy Friday. How are you?
Doing great. What's going on?
Well, we're talking a lot about the Celtics today, and it's interesting. I'm sure you've seen this in baseball, although I don't have an even comparison off the top of my head. But the Celtics just traded Marcus Smart, kind of the heart and soul of their team. And look, maybe it yields him a championship, or maybe the team regresses because of what he brought no longer being there. I'm sure you've seen this dynamic before in baseball. This seems like a certainly a risky move for the Celtics.
Yeah, because you're breaking up, you're potentially breaking up a core of a team that seemed like it was at least really close to winning a championship, which is why I think part of me really admires Brad Stevens for having got to do it, because it's easier, I think you and I would agree, to run back to status quo for front office people. Instead, Brad Stevens has really set himself up to be second guessed like crazy. And then on the other hand, these moves can be difference making. I, wrote earlier this week, coincidentally, about the middle of the 2000 season for the Yankees when they had won 3 out of 4 championships, 2 in a row, and yet the team was languishing. It felt like something was missing. And so in the middle of that season, Brian Cashman traded for a veteran outfielder, Dave Justice, who went on, to perform great for the Yankees. I don't think they would have made the World Series or even win it that year without David, and it was, phenomenal choice, phenomenal timing, and put him over the top. So it'll be interesting to see which way this goes.
Buster, you have just opened up very serious wounds for me in life. Let's see, 2000, I was 11 years old. I was at Game 1 of the ALCS that year in 2000, Mariners-Yankees. Mariners won 2-0. A-Rod homered for the Mariners in that game, but that series ended in Game 6 when David Justice hit a home run off Arthur Rhodes, and I haven't gotten over it yet from Game 6.
I must say, that was the loudest ball that I ever heard hit in Yankee Stadium, old Yankee Stadium, with the home run hit off Arthur. I mean, it was like, walk. And I'm sure you probably can still hear it in your it's somewhere in your memory bank.
Yeah, unfortunately it is. Hey, let's talk about the Red Sox. Red Sox split a series with Minnesota. How are we supposed to view this right now? It's a 4-game set. You're on the road. Yeah, you split. That's generally thought of as good. But when you've won the first 2, it feels like you missed out on an opportunity to win the series.
Yeah, I think big picture, if you're, the Red Sox, I'd be thinking, good thoughts, because you have had now, in the last couple weeks, you've gone toe-to-toe with a team that, they're not a dynamic team in the Twins, but they are leading the American League Central. They've got some really good players in that depth. You took 5 out of 6 with the Yankees, including a sweep at Fenway Park. I just having been around the Red Sox last weekend, I think they're feeling comfortable, and in some respects, it's interesting because I think when they showed up in spring training and there was a lot of negativity around the team because the front office had done sort of moves that that the fan base wanted it to have. It felt like there was pressure at the beginning of the year, and then they went through the swoon earlier this month. That in some respects, folks like myself started to write them off a little bit. And they're hanging in there. As you and I talked, they're 2.5 games out of the wild card. I still don't think they're going to make it. I think the AL is still case match. But if you're the Red Sox, if you've withstood some of these injuries they've had recently, and you're hanging in there, you know what? I think from the players' perspective, there probably isn't a lot of pressure on them at the moment.
Sam Kennedy said yesterday on WEEI that he anticipates this team buying. I think his exact words were something to the effect of, I can't foresee a situation in which we wouldn't buy. Obviously, a lot can change in a month. We all get that. But at what point will we start to see some movement on the trade market, you think?
Not anytime soon. I mentioned the article that I worked on earlier this week. It was about, what's available in the outfield market in particular. But one thing I'm getting back a lot from general managers this week is that the American League, National League Central, the mediocrity of those divisions is really complicating the trade market, because 9 out of the 10 of those teams, you might, in a normal year, might think about selling at this point because they're not playing very well. But because the Twins are leading the Central with a 500 record, that kind of probably sends hope for a team like the White Sox or the Tigers. The Guardians are closer than they normally would be in the situation. The Pirates, led the National League Central for a while, and now they're coming back to the division. And the leaders are the Reds. And so even the St. Louis Cardinals probably are not out of hope. What that means is, at the moment, as the general manager said the other day, you just don't really necessarily have a lot of sellers declaring themselves. I do think at some point, with a couple weeks to go, that'll happen, but it's going to happen later than it typically does.
Buster Olney of ESPN, our MLB insider, with us here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. And I had a fascinating conversation with Tom Caron the other day on Tuesday, and he was talking about James Paxton. And he's in favor of keeping Paxton and going for it with this team. But some of the guys he had been talking with on the Red Sox broadcast, like Papelbon and Will Middlebrooks the other day, said that they kind of wondered, like, even if the Sox are in it, will the price be too good to not sell Paxton? And I have a hard time believing that Paxton's going to bring a huge return. I know he's affordable, but he's 34 years old with a big injury history. Am I wrong on that? Like, would he bring a huge return?
I completely agree with you. I don't think he would bring a lot of return because of the injury risk. If you had someone who sort of had a plow horse reputation, and I don't mean that as in him as a person, as well, he cares about how much he actually is available. Someone who's steady and consistent, and a team like the Dodgers could look at him and count for innings. But a lot of teams are going to eventually look at Paxton in the market and say, yeah, it's possible he can come over here and give us 8 to 10 starts, might have a chance to really help us. But then there's also a real chance he's going to break down. And I think that'll diminish the price for him. I would say this, but one thing that might nudge his price upward is what I mentioned before. There are not a lot of sellers, and you could put him out there. But I think it'd be really hard for Heim to work from the same playbook that he did last year, which is to be a buyer and a seller. On one hand, trade Christian Vasquez, and on the other hand, pretend that you're actually going for it. I don't think they can do that, and especially with all the starting pitching injuries that they've suffered between Sale and the unfortunate injury with Tanner House the other day.
It's interesting too. I guess now I ask you the question on the other side: if Paxton would not yield a huge return, and you're still in it, do you think they try to extend him early before he hits free agency? I know how prices go in free agency, and it's going to go probably beyond where the Red Sox want, but he seems to like Boston. They've helped him recover. Could they get him to a 2-year fair deal if they extended him this season?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and I do think it's worth it for the Red Sox front office to explore that question. Based on what they believe internally, if they're going to say one thing publicly about, Paxton being a guy you can rely on, and then privately they're going to have their own assessment. If they believe that some of the injuries are behind him and that he's worthwhile investment with the price mitigated by that injury history, then yeah, you look at it. I think for sure, especially given some of the questions about how much depth they have in their rotation down the minor leagues.
Let me ask you about the guy we're going to see tonight for the White Sox, and that's Lucas Giolito. Obviously, you said you're right that the White Sox are still in the playoff race by virtue of playing in the AL Central, so I know they're not necessarily inclined to sell, but Giolito fits the market of a guy they could sell, right? He's a less than 30-year-old pitcher. He certainly would command, I think, a bigger return than Paxton. He's a guy who's been an all-star before, and he's a guy also on an expiring deal. Do you think Giolito could be moved, and what might the price be on him?
I don't think he's going to be moved until the White Sox know for sure, with near certainty that they're just not going to put on the run that they expect internally. And there's some interesting dynamics going on there. Because their owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, as the former owner of the Bulls, or excuse me, the owner of the Bulls, he's won championships. He's now in his mid-80s, and he, okayed 4 or 5 years ago when they traded Chris Sale, essentially this tanking rebuilding, and they built the team up for this moment. And so I don't think they're going to think about selling until they absolutely feel like, okay, we're done. We have no chance. And now they still have the breath of oxygen. So I think that they'll continue to go down the road of trying to win. And if we get to, say, July 20th, and it's still not happening for the White Sox, yes, I think he'll be available because he's a free agent in the fall. And yeah, because the market is thin, there'll be a lot of teams out there for him. Like, if let's say the Cardinals get back into it, maybe they would. The Atlanta Braves, to me, are such a good team. They do have questions about their pitching staff. We've heard about the Dodgers. Andrew Friedman came out earlier this week, had a baseball ops for LA, and said because of the Dodgers pitching problems, they're probably going to be buyers. Maybe the Yankees, maybe the Mets. There are definitely a lot of potential suitors in what looks like a thin market.
I'll ask you a Yankees question. Of course, the Mariners are everybody's get-right team, so the Yankees just took 2 of 3 from them. But by and large, the Yankees haven't looked good over the last 3 weeks or so, and it all coincides with the Aaron Judge injury. Domingo Germán has had now 2 horrific starts here, so the pitching is in tatters, kind of to your point. And offensively, they really have been very good for 3 weeks now. How worried are you about the Yankees?
I think that they should be worried enough, as I wrote in a piece earlier this week, that now is the time to consider a David Justice-like trade. If you can go out and get somebody to boost that offense, because DJ LeMahieu has just not looked good at all, and he's expanding the strike zone and striking out in a way we've never seen before. Giancarlo Stanton, we know from his history, he's a very streaky player, and when he gets hot, he can carry a team for months, and right now is the opposite of that. Anthony Rizzo had 2 hits the other day, but generally speaking, not playing really well. Last weekend, between games at doubleheader Sunday, I asked Aaron Boone, do you feel like the absence of Aaron Judge is affecting the rest of the players? And it was like Boone was prepared for that question because he picked up his lineup card and he pointed the names on it. He said, these guys are all capable of being productive and think anything else would be an excuse. And it felt to some degree like he was trying to speak to his team through his answer. And it reminded me a little bit of, remember when Rick Pitino, the former Celtics coach, said, Larry Bird's not coming through the door anytime soon. Kevin McHale not walking through the door. Aaron Judge, he's out indefinitely, and they have to figure out a way to play better without it. And maybe at some point you go ahead, but I know from talking with Brian Castro, the general manager, the last couple of days, that they feel like they're going to move ahead. And the players simply have to perform and take up, get it done.
Buster Olney, ESPN MLB Insider, Red Sox, White Sox tonight. Our coverage 7:10, first pitch 8:10. Buster, Sox looking to win another series and then head back home for a series with the exciting young Marlins team. So we'll talk to you in 7 days.
Absolutely. I'll see you as well. Buster Olney, the best, our ESPN MLB Insider with us usually every Thursday. It's actually 6 days we'll talk to him, but today with us on a Friday. Interesting stuff there about Paxton. Yeah, I'm sorry about TC or Middlebrooks or Papelbon or whoever it was. I don't think Paxton's going to yield a huge return, and Buster agrees with me. It's not that Paxton's not good. Of course Paxton's good, and he's been good this year. But for 8 to 10 starts for a 34-year-old who's broken down a lot in his career, are you really willing to give up, a top 100 prospect in baseball, nevertheless 2 or something? I'm not. And I'm all for the Red Sox building up the farm system. But if they're in it, I want to keep Paxton, and I'll take the risk. I don't think another team's going to take the risk, though, and give you what I would need. Extending Paxton and doing it early does make sense for me, right? If he goes out to the market, is going to get 2 years and $37 million, I can't do that. But if I can get him early and go 2 years for $21 million, then because he likes Boston and he likes how we've treated him, then that's something I could get behind. That's absolutely something I can get behind, right? I don't want to trade him for what is going to, I think, be pennies on the dollar. Not even pennies on the dollar. It's probably fair value, but it's not enough for me to torpedo my chances of getting to the playoffs. CBS News update. We'll have a lot of Celtics talk in this hour. Ben Stinar from Fast Break on Fan Nation is going to stop by at 6:30. But right when we come back, I got to tell you, I watched something yesterday that I used to love, and I realized just how utterly ridiculous it is. I'll tell you what that was next on DEV.
This is WDEV, Vermont's news station, owned and operated by the Radio Vermont Group. From the top of Sugarbush, 96.1 FM, WDEV Warren and Woodsfield, 96.5 W243 Barry, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, along with our founding station, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury Montpelier, streaming at WDEVradio.com. 91 years of serving Vermont, the friendly pioneer, WDEV. This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Indeed.com.
I'm Linda Kenyon in Washington. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Today, President Biden joined a rally in Washington, D.C. on preserving abortion rights.
Court got Roe right 50 years ago. And I believe Congress should restore the protections of Roe v. Wade once and for all.
The president signed an executive order today that strengthens access to birth control pills. A new poll looks at how voters might respond at the ballot box when it comes to abortion.
New CBS polling shows 45% of Democrats are more likely to vote in 2024 based on what's transpired since Roe was overturned, compared to 28% of Republicans. But a majority of Democrats say their party has not been doing enough to protect abortion access.
That's CBS's Caitlin Huey-Burns. New research suggests a sharp increase in diabetes worldwide. Canyon Liang Ong led the study.
2021 is the worst we've seen since 1990. What we're predicting is that every year until 2050, which is when our estimates go out to.
Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, seriously, like, what am I going to do with a 30-second break?
Future precautions. CBS's Roxana Saberi has the latest.
Given the loss of life and its huge cost in terms of resources and time spent by the Coast Guard trying to search for the Titan, the U.S., some experts say, could now enact tougher restrictions on submersibles and expeditions of this.
Officials believe the Titan imploded. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has released body cam footage that shows agents shooting and killing a tribal member they thought had a handgun.
The shooting of 58-year-old Raymond Mattia happened May 18th outside a house in a remote corner of a Native American nation in Arizona near the U.S.-Mexico border. 3 Border Patrol agents hit him a total of 9 times. The video shows Mattia throwing a sheathed machete at the foot of a tribal officer and then holding out his arm. Christopher Cruz, CBS News.
The House Judiciary Committee will investigate the business dealings of President Biden's son, Hunter Biden.
It's noticeable in the initial hours of this news how quickly Republicans are tying this news about Hunter Biden to the federal prosecution of Donald Trump.
CBS's Scott McFarland. Those 5 former Memphis police officers charged in the death of Tyree Nichols were in court again today. Their attorney is Blake Ballin.
It's stressful for everyone. It's stressful for the Nichols family. It's stressful for the defendants and their families. It's stressful for the lawyers. So we are all just looking forward to moving in the direction of resolving this.
This is CBS News.
Need hires who dazzle without the hassle? You need Indeed. Their powerful platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be signs that your digestive system isn't working at its best? But taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil supports your daily digestive health using a special plant-based fiber called psyllium. Psyllium works by forming a gel in your digestive system to trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Metamucil's gelling action also helps to promote heart health and slows down sugar absorption to promote healthy blood sugar levels. Start feeling lighter and more energetic by taking Metamucil every day. There's a right way and a wrong way to fight off mosquitoes. Karate chop in the air, in a public place, in front of your kids and their friends, is the wrong way. Using STEM mosquito repellent is the right way. STEM effectively repels mosquitoes by harnessing active ingredients found in plants like lemongrass and peppermint, making it safe for use as directed around people and pets. STEM, rooted in nature, optimized by science, and embarrassment-free. A new law in Louisiana allows public schools to use corporal punishment to discipline students, but only if their parents opt in. WWL's Chris Miller reports.
Corporal punishment in Louisiana has always been left up to each school district. After trying for years to ban it altogether, State Representative Stephanie Hilferty, a Republican from the New Orleans suburb of Metairie, switched to requiring parents give written permission if schools are to paddle students.
It puts the parents in the driver's seat of making this decision as to how their children are punished at school as it relates to corporal punishment, or more colloquially known as spanking.
The law takes effect when kids go back to school this year. Chris Miller for CBS News, New Orleans.
Workers at 150 Starbucks locations will strike in the coming week over what their union says is a clash over decor supporting LGBTQ causes. The company says it has not banned any such displays. Linda Kenyon, CBS News.
Attention business owners, stop throwing your hard-earned money away on rent. Imagine owning your own building and saving thousands every...
Make your opinions heard by texting onto the Brady Farkas Show at 802-585-3026.
Back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show, right here on WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com. Air Auto text line is open, 802-585-3026. I'll tell you what Marcus Smart had to say about being traded here momentarily, but I just have to mention this. So I was born in 1989, but largely I'm a child of the 90s, right? Like, I grew up in the 90s. So the things that were popular in the 90s, I largely like and hold dear to, right? And a lot of those are the kind of the kids type TV shows, right? And I mean, like the things that were on like TGIF, right? Like I loved Full House growing up and Family Matters and Boy Meets World and stuff like that. And as streaming gets more popular or now kind of takes over, a lot of these shows are kind of accessible to you again on various different platforms. So last night, actually 2 nights ago, I decided to go really flipping through the after the Red Sox had lost in extras to the Twins. I decided to go kind of down the rabbit hole and look into streaming services and see just what's there. And I came across Saved by the Bell, which is another one of those 90s shows where, you know, they were a little bit older than me, but, you know, they were teenagers and I was 8 or 9 or whatever. And I would watch Saved by the Bell every day after school. I'd watch it before school. It was on at various different points of the day at various points in my life. So I would watch Saved by the Bell all the time. I feel like I watched it all the time from, you know, age 9 to 15 or 16, and then it kind of went away, so I stopped watching it. But I went and watched Saved by the Bell the other night. This might be the most absurd show in the history of the planet. Like, the most absurd show in the history of the planet. That show would never get made today. I mean, I know they've made the Saved by the Bell remix or whatever, but like the way it was made before would never get made today. Okay, if you are between the ages of 28 and 40, please chip in real quick, 802-585-3026. So I know I'm not talking into a vacuum on this. I will get to the Celtics in a second. But like this show, I'm watching and almost everything about it is ridiculous. The first episode I watched, Mr. Belding, the school principal, calls Kelly sweetie or something. On what planet is the principal calling the student sweetie? Then I think she gave him a kiss on the cheek. On what planet is the student kissing the principal on the cheek? The next episode I see, Zach is sending Screech into the girls' locker room undercover to get a video of them singing. Like, they were clothed and all that, but like get a video of them singing. On what planet is that happening and getting made? Then we got Zach running the school store, selling pinup calendars of the girls of Bayside. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And Mr. Belding is all for it. I'm like, this show, like, I loved it growing up. But like, as I watch it now at 33 instead of 13, I'm like, on what planet did this show get on television and have like a 5 or 6 year run where it was really, really good? And then I'm like, when do these people, like, we see them in class a lot. We do. But like, the girls are going to become record stars and Zach's their manager. And then the next summer, they're all, you know, working at the country club. I'm like, this is like just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, look, I loved it in its day. I watched a few episodes, but I'm like, wow, this show. Wow. All right, that's enough 90s nostalgia. Marcus Smart has commented on being traded from the Celtics. He put a post out on social media and says the following: where do I even begin? As I start to think about the last 9 years, I have a lot of emotions running through me. I came to Boston as a naive kid from Dallas, not really knowing what to expect. All I knew was the type of work ethic my mama instilled in me, and I was going to work my ass off and make sure I earned the respect of each and every one of the fans in Boston, which is why this was tough. Boston, you are a very special place to me. I grew up here and met some of my best friends here. I'll never forget my time here. Ultimately, we didn't get that 18th banner, but I'm very, very proud of the success we had. I'm going to miss so many things about Boston, but mainly my teammates, fans, and kids in our hospital charity work. It was a great 9 years, Boston. Thank you for all the love. But now it's time to look forward. I can't wait to get to Memphis and get started. We have something special brewing here. I'm blessed to be part of Grizzly Nation. Let's get to work. First off, it's a very classy response. It is a better response than I could put down on paper or on virtual paper in a 36-hour time span. Okay. I would not have the ability to put that together in 36 hours. The emotion would be too fresh. The pain would be too real. I give Marcus Smart a lot of credit. And I believe him when he says that. Okay. I believe him when he says those things. I think he will miss Boston. I think he loved being here. As I said yesterday, he embodied what it meant to be a Boston Celtic. And I think he handled this brilliantly. Because for me, I would be too angry to be that articulate and that nice this quickly. And I got a lot of texts yesterday on the text line, 802-585-3026. A lot of people were talking to me about the Celtics. A lot of people liked what I had to say about it. A lot of people didn't like what I had to say about it. But that's what Smart had to say about it. And to his credit also, Brad Stevens spoke about Marcus Smart yesterday in trading him away. He spoke about him at about 2:30 in the morning after the draft.
As far as Marcus, as I told him, when he got here, we were 25 and 57 the year before. And the greatest legacy that you can leave, right, is to be someplace and it's better off because you were there. And, I think that everybody here feels that way. I think that he will always be appreciated and thought of so fondly here for any number of reasons. Obviously, everybody loved the way that he plays and how hard he plays, but also his work in the community. And
I said this yesterday, and I still mean it today. I don't think this was easy for Brad Stevens. Okay, I think that Brad Stevens is generally a nice guy. And I think that Brad Stevens yesterday realized how hard this job is. And I'm not saying that he didn't know, and I'm not saying he wasn't necessarily prepared, but I think yesterday, we always talk about when players get their welcome to the league moment. I think yesterday was that for Brad Stevens, welcome to the front office, right? It's all fun and games when you're signing someone to a long-term deal. It's all fun and games when you're trading for Malcolm Brogdon and you're trading away a little-known, little-used piece like Romeo Langford, right? It's all fun and games you're doing that. It becomes hard when you're trading away a franchise pillar. It becomes even harder when you're trading away a franchise pillar that you brought in, that you coached for 8 years. A franchise pillar that you have gone to battle with, that you have seen him sacrifice, that has sacrificed for you. I think yesterday was very much a welcome to the front office position moment for Brad Stevens. Hey, the Ime Udoka scandal was tough, but that's not as personal as Marcus Smart is, right? Ime Udoka did something wrong. Marcus Smart did nothing wrong. And Brad Stevens had to trade him away. I don't think it was easy for him. And I think that emotion yesterday is real. I don't think Brad Stevens is a used car salesman. I don't think Brad Stevens is a good liar. I don't think he's a sheep in wolf's clothing or a wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't think he's any of that. I think Brad Stevens kind of is easy to read. And I saw that he was affected by this trade yesterday. It couldn't have been easy for him. It doesn't make it right or wrong, right? That's not the debate here. I have my opinion, you have yours, but I think very clearly Brad Stevens was affected by this. And now I'm sure it will get easier, right? Danny Ainge had developed that callousness to it, right? He could trade Isaiah Thomas, and he could move on from Donovan Mitchell when he got to Utah. Brad Stevens might get there as well, but yesterday, that one I'm sure was hard. I'm sure it was hard. Stevens also talked about Kristaps Porzingis and what he can bring to the team.
And he's a super skilled basketball player. We didn't post a ton this year, but to be able to throw the ball in the post and just shoot over a switch and do it so efficiently and effectively is a big deal, let alone be able to play behind the line, shoot the ball or drive it or those type of things. So, he brings a lot to our team.
I mean, I'm very, very excited to watch Porzingis. Okay, I am. Kristaps Porzingis will bring something to this team. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Shoot the three, versatility, good rim protector, good post up, can do things down low. I'm not discounting what Kristaps Porzingis can bring. When I tell you yesterday, and I still mean it today, that I lean towards not loving this deal, it is not a blowout. I do not hate this deal, but I do worry about ultimately where the Celtics get their toughness from and get their leadership from. And I think that's important. I think that stuff's really important. But Kristaps Porzingis, I am excited to watch him. I am excited to see how he fits. I am excited to see if he plays the straight 5 position or if he plays as part of a big lineup and how they use his versatility. I think there are options for Joe Mazzulla. And there are options for the Celtics. It'll take some pressure off of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on scoring nights. I do think there's a lot of good here. But I think there was a lot of good with Marcus Smart too. And I mentioned a lot of yesterday about the leadership. Harry Douglas of ESPN put it perfectly yesterday. This is exactly what I was thinking.
Being there, sometimes it can be a little cloudy. So you didn't know if it was Marcus Smart, you didn't know if it was Jaylen Brown, you didn't know if it was Al Horford, you didn't know if it was Jason Tatum. Now you take Marcus Smart out of the equation. I think this is going to force Jason Tatum to be more so of that leader than you want to need him to.
See, I said before the clip, he said it perfectly. He's getting at what I was saying. I do worry about the leadership of the Celtics. He says it'll force Jason Tatum to be that leader. I don't know that it doesn't force somebody else to try to be the leader, and there's not a clash. And what I'm getting at is I saw the same thing on a much lower scale with UVM, right? Okay. UVM 2 years ago, right? UVM men's basketball 2 years ago. Ben Shungu and Ryan Davis were the best players on the team, and they were the team leaders. And when you lost them, you lost Mazzulla, you lost Isaiah Powell. I was like, wow, UVM's losing 4 starters. They're losing scoring and they're losing leadership. They're losing seniors and they're losing captains. And going into last year, I wondered the same thing. I'm like, okay, who is going to step up here? Because one guy could ascend to the leadership spot and just have it, which is what happened. It became Robin Duncan. But I also said to myself before the season, before we knew that that's how it was going to play out, I'm like, okay, well, now we got a whole new group of seniors here. And those leadership roles are there for the taking. And I'm like, okay, well, is there going to be a power struggle? Okay, Aaron Deloney and Robin Duncan and now the new guys. And there's Finn Sullivan there. What about Dylan Penn coming in? I wondered what was going to happen. And UVM handled it well. Robin Duncan ascended into the leadership role, ran with it, and everybody looked at him as the unquestioned leader of the team. This year, I don't know what's going to happen for the Celtics. Okay, again, to Harry Douglas's point, maybe Jason Tatum just steps up, takes it, and everybody looks at him as he's the unquestioned guy. But I can also foresee a world where Al Horford is 37 years old and knows he's at the end of his career, and he thinks, you know what? I got to step up. Like, this has got to be, I got to be the leader here. I got to be the voice. I can't leave it to the kids. I can't wonder if they can do it. I got to do it. And now Horford's trying to do it. But at the same time, Tatum's listening to Harry Douglas, and he's like, no, yeah, okay, this is where I got to do it. And Jaylen Brown's like, screw it, I got to do it. Hey, heck, I'm going to sign the deal. I'm going to stay here. Well, now I got to be the voice. I got to be the toughness. And now you've got a power struggle with 3 guys there all vying for control. And all. Now we're going to have half the locker room who's a Jaylen guy and half the locker room who's a Jason guy. That's what I don't want. Hey, that is what I don't want. There need to be some real conversations, I think, with the Celtics, among the Celtics, about who are we letting step up here? Because we cannot have a situation where half the team follows Jason and half the team follows Jaylen and the team gets fractured. We saw that already with Kyrie a couple of years ago. right? Half the team follows Kyrie and half the team goes against Kyrie. Half the team's with Kemba, half the team's with the young guys. Can't have it. Okay, the leadership stuff, you think it's corny. It's very, very real. Okay, the leadership tore apart the Celtics in the Kyrie Irving years. It got to them as well in the Kemba years. They need to be in lockstep about who the leaders of this team are. So Harry Douglas says, oh, it forces Tatum. Yeah, but what if it also forces somebody else? What if it forces Jaylen Brown? Those two, I do think, are rivals. They're rivals on the court. They're rivals in role. They're rivals in all-star votes. They're rivals in all NBA votes. In NBA, who's going to be on the first team, second team, third team? Are they going to be rivals in the leadership department as well? That's what worries me. Okay? That's what worries me. It's the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV. We're brought to you by Fecto Homes. 802-585-3026. That's the Air Auto text line. Corey Alexander, who's an ESPN NBA insider, he worries about the Celtics without Smart. He's one of the only ones nationally who I've heard, along with Kendrick Perkins, say they really don't like the deal.
Only do you do this, you do it on such short notice because you're up against the gun with Porzingis with the midnight deadline, that you do this most likely without having a conversation with Jason Tatum, without having a conversation with Jaylen Brown, and now those guys find out that Smart just got traded with everyone else. That causes a problem in your locker room. They are not better with Porzingis than they are with Marcus Smart. They're worse.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole when everybody found out things, right? If they found it out late, that would be a problem too, right? But I don't know that for a fact, so I won't speculate on that. I do think the Celtics are mildly worse today. Mildly. They don't have as much depth. They don't have as good a defense. They don't have as much toughness. They don't have as much leadership. They lost Gallinari, Muscala, and they've lost Smart. I think they're a little bit worse. Not appreciably worse, but a little bit worse. And then yesterday in the draft, they go get Jordan Walsh, this kid out of Arkansas, who's a defensive-minded player. Is not really a scorer. That they need that. If the rest of the team is going to be offensive-minded, they need defense. They go get 4 additional second-round picks in the future. That does absolutely nothing for me. Okay, second-round picks in the NBA do absolutely nothing for me. It's just like great, they're trade assets. Well, okay, are they really? What amazes me about the NBA draft is this. In the NFL, we have 7 rounds, and we can find steals in the 7th round, and you can find undrafted steals. And in the NBA, unless you're the Miami Heat, by and large, the players after 10 are a total crapshoot. For every Jokic, Isaiah Thomas, and Draymond Green there is in the 2nd round, there's 28 picks that stink and you never hear of. So I don't hey, we got a bunch of 2nd-round picks. That's a bunch of assets for the future. Unless you're turning those 2nd-round picks into 1st-round picks, they're not really assets. They're just kind of there. And it doesn't do a lot for me. Does not do a lot for me. Interesting enough, we talked yesterday. This is very sad. I talked yesterday about Lonzo Ball for a minute. I said, Lonzo Ball's the kind of point guard I would want the Celtics to have, right? A good passer, a ball distributor, doesn't need to score. Lonzo Ball, he may never play again. The Bulls came out and said today they don't expect him to be back at all this season. I read things that said privately they don't know if he'll ever play again. This is knee injury after knee injury, and he's a young guy. He's still under 25 years old. He might even be younger than that. But he may never play again. It's too bad because really, you take away the smoke and bluster of his father and LeVar Ball and Big Baller Brandon, all that. Lonzo Ball never said anything. Lonzo Ball was never the problem. It was always his dad who we got tired of. Lonzo Ball is a really good player. And I don't know if we'll ever get to see him again. I heard somebody else, earlier compare him to Brandon Roy. Remember him? He played with the Blazers. He was really good. Maybe he's the next Brandon Roy. Can't overcome the knee injuries. Kind of like Derrick Rose. Now, Derrick Rose has come back and played, but he's not the Derrick Rose that we remember. Okay? Isaiah Thomas was older. He had gotten a chance in the league, but remember Isaiah Thomas. Okay? Hip injury, done. Okay? Hip injury, done. And that's it. So I hope Lonzo Ball plays again, but it's not looking good right now. On the draft pick of Jordan Walsh, here's Jeff Goodman of Stadium talking about him. Again, Jordan Walsh selected by the Celtics, number 38 overall in the draft. Glad to hear that. He's 6'7", 205 pounds. He only played 1 year of college basketball at Arkansas, so he was not actually on that team that UVM played in the tournament a couple of years ago. Remember, UVM lost to Marquette this year, Arkansas the year before that. He was not on that Arkansas team because he was a freshman this year. He averaged 7 points a game this year. Let me get pulled. Yeah, 7.1 points a game. 20 of 72 from three. That's 28%, 71% from the floor. So, yeah, Goodman's on track there. He's not a particularly good shooter. So, look, does he have a role? Look, you're a defender. Yeah, that probably is good. They still need a defender who's a guard. Don't know where they go to get that. They didn't draft one last night. We'll see what they do here in free agency when it starts. They don't have a whole lot of money left, so we'll see what happens. Speaking of the Celtics, Ben Stinar. Fast break on Fan Nation, NBA insider. He's going to join us next. Talk about the C's here on the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes on DEV.
Do you own land with a single or double wide home? Visit Fecto Homes, where they can guarantee top dollar for your existing mobile home, regardless of the year. They offer many finance options with competitive rates and down payment assistance exclusively for mobile homes. Fecto Homes has several models for sale off the lot or customize and order your own. Make the most of your time and money. Visit them today at 350 River Street, Route 302 in Montpelier, or online at fectohomes.com.
Waterbury invites you to think local, buy local, and be local by experiencing our rich history, arts, and culture. Enjoy a self-guided walking tour of our historic downtown and keep an eye out for our arts installations, creative window displays, open studios, and galleries with rotating exhibits. Pop into the Historical Society to view artifacts and stories from the past. Learn how the community rebounded after the Great Flood of 1927 and again in 2011 after being struck by Tropical Storm Irene.
Stowe Street Emporium, a locally owned gift.
Hey, Ben, how are you? Yep, I got you.
We are open 7 days a week.
Perfect. We're in a commercial break. I'll see you here in about 2 minutes.
So see you soon at 23 Stowe Street.
All right, 1 sec.
Downtown Waterbury. The Wine Vault, an approachable wine shop. We take the snobbery out of wine. With over 1,000 bottles to choose from, we feature the classics of Napa to the funk of Slovenia. The Wine Vault is located on Elm Street in Waterbury, across from Propane. See you at the vault.
Hi, I'm Yvonne from VSCCU, a credit union for everybody in Vermont. It's tax season, and for many, that means a refund. Instead of spending it, kickstart or boost your savings. Look, you've been making ends meet all year long without that money anyway, so why not sock it away? At VSCCU, we have options. A basic savings account is a great way for you to start saving. If you need to resist the temptation of dipping into your savings, consider a certificate that pays a highly competitive interest rate for deposit dollars like your tax refund. And then, of course, there's our Be Green Money Market account, where 100% of your deposit dollars support clean energy while your savings grow. Learn more at vsccu.com/save. Make change simply by banking with VSCCU.
Generally insured by the NCUA.
Hey, wouldn't it be great if life came with remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind. Like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Uh-oh. Or that time you forgot to roll up your windows in the car wash. Fantastic. Yeah, the remote control would have come in handy then. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but pre-diabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes like managing your weight, getting active, stopping smoking, and eating healthier, you can stop pre-diabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. It's easy to lower the risk. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Life doesn't come with a remote control. So you're on your own with the wasps. You have the power to take control of prediabetes. Visit doihaveprediabetes.org today. That's doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Want Brady to hear your opinion on the sports stories of the day? Text in 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show, right here on WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com, presented by Fecto Homes, your total home solution in Montpelier. We're up until 7 o'clock tonight, full show. The Red Sox are taking on the White Sox tonight. Our coverage begins at 7:10. First pitch is 8:10. Brian Bayo on the mound against Lucas Giolito. I want to continue on with the conversation here about the Celtics, and I want to go out to the phone line now and bring on our NBA insider and friend of the show, Ben Stinar, over with the Fast Break on Fan Nation team. Ben, how are you? Yeah, really busy for the Celtics here in the last 36 hours. Let's step back and look just big picture for a moment. What did you make of everything in the Porzingis Smart trade developments, from the trades that broke down at first with the 3-team with the Clippers trade and Brogdon to where we ended up? What did you make of the whole thing?
About that trade that was going to happen with the Clippers, and obviously the whole Brogdon situation. It never seemed like the way the reporting, if you read into the wording they were using, it seemed like it wasn't set in concrete. So it was almost like not like you could see it coming, but like it didn't feel like, oh, the trade's happening. It was like, if you watch the words they were using, something was off, and so clearly what was off was the Brogdon thing. Clearly something's wrong with Brogdon that we all weren't aware of. I mean, he had a great season. I mean, he was incredible last year. Man, I mean, they still get their guy ultimately, but they have to give up Marcus Smart, who's kind of the bloodline of, Boston. Like, he's the heart and soul, it's the blood, and he's your, you don't see that as much these days, these guys who are here for 9, 10, 11, 12 years, especially when you're not a superstar player. So to see what Marcus Smart was able to do with Boston, heartbreaking, I mean, he not fit a better squad than Memphis too. I mean, what a place for him to land.
Well, I saw it kind of said, I think, this way, that Marcus Smart is everything that Dylan Brooks thought he was for that team.
I'm not as down on Dylan Brooks as everybody else is, but I totally get the analogy. The analogy is spot on. Because look, the Grizzlies are always known as that grit and grind. Tony Allen, Zach Randolph, Rudy Gay, all those guys. Remember that back in the day?
Yeah.
Marcus Smart fits that. I mean, they've been able to do that again with Desmond Bain, John Morant, like you said, Dylan Brooks. So real quick, I got sidetracked. We're talking about Smart there. The real thing that really excited me here is Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, it's tough to see Smart go, but look, I've been really high on Kristaps over the last couple of seasons. Really more down on him. If you look at his numbers, he had an incredible year last year. And look, again, in Boston, we talked about before when I was on show 4, they've got Tatum, they've got Brown. It's not like they need so much more. You're going to have a guy in Kristaps Porzingis who's a third option. I mean, think about that. So this guy's efficient. He defends the rim, and he's 7'3". I mean, it's going to be unique. I don't know how you feel about it, Brady, but I'm excited.
It's interesting. I started doing radio in Albany, New York 7 years ago or 8 years ago. I got my first show, and Porzingis had just been drafted by the Knicks. And so I've always had in my mind that Porzingis is that guy who I was covering when he first came up in his career. So when I first heard about the trade, I was way down on it. I'm like, okay, standstill jump shooter who's weak, who floats around the perimeter. When you really start to do the deep dive, Porzingis is not that guy anymore. And I'm ignorant to the point of not watching a whole lot of Wizards games over the last several years, and the Mavericks and Knicks before that. Porzingis is no longer that player. He is a guy, I'm 14th in post-ups last year. I think second in post-up efficiency, multiple, 1.5 blocks per game. He has that ability in him to play that kind of Euro big Dirk Nowitzki game still, but he's much more of a post threat than I ever thought that he was. So I do have to give him credit for being much more diverse than I was expecting.
I think that's a great analysis, Brady. I mean, that's what always amazes me is that this guy's good defense. I mean, in terms of, like, we just look at him as this offensive, very gifted, unique talent. and it kind of gets lost that he's a really good defender. He was averaging, about a steal a game. Like I said, he got 1.5 blocks per game. He's a legitimate shot blocker, and that 1.5 blocks per game was not his out of nowhere. I don't know his career average offhand. He averages over one block per game for his career. So, like you said, he's way more than just this. Oh, he's a stretch big and shoot from deep. I mean, this guy can post up. He can play basically what you said. He can be that that unique center, really center. I mean, because it's so funny saying center when let's think of him as a forward. But no, he's 7'3". He can be that center for you. And I think another thing that's going to be interesting is that in two situations that weren't good organizations or teams, the old New York Knicks with Carmelo, that was not a well-run team. They're much better run now, but they were not a well-run team. And the Wizards were not a well-run team. They're clearly not a well-run team. So I guess what I'm going here is he's had the unique experience of playing with a Kyle Kuzma, interesting forward like Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and he's had the playing with a prime Carmelo Anthony. Both in bad situations, though, I think he could take those two poor situations and go to now a good organization that has winning culture and winning stuff. And I think he's got that, he's played with unique talent, is what I'm trying to get at. He's played with Carmelo Anthony in prime. He's played with a Kyle Kuzma, who's 6'10" and stretches the floor. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Ben Stinar, Fast Break on Fan Nation, NBA Insider with us here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. We as fans, we as media people are often hypocritical. We want as many stars as possible, but we also want as much depth as possible. And if you have depth, then we blame you not having enough stars. And if you have stars, we blame you on not having enough depth. You rarely get both. And where I'm going with the question is, the Celtics clearly have a big three. But in getting that big three, they've now lost Marcus Smart. They've lost Danilo Gallinari. They've lost Mike Muscala. Now they've got clearly a hampered Malcolm Brogdon here. So they have a hole at the point guard position, and they have a hole in their bench scoring. Do you think they are better today than they were 48 hours ago?
I think it's tough because you look at the Marcus Smart and you want to say, oh, that's going to really hurt them. I think it is emotionally. I think it is in a locker room, a leadership. Somebody's going to have to step up as a voice. You can't expect Kristaps to replace Marcus Smart as a leader in that locker room. So let's be real. Let's be real here. I love Marcus Smart. It's hard to say it, but I'm almost like speaking like I'm a Celtics fan. I'm not. But look, Kristaps is a better player than Marcus Smart. Let's be real. He's a much better player, gifted, talented-wise than Marcus Smart. He can shoot better. He's so much bigger. He can defend the rim. He can, like we said, shoot efficiently while also being that poster-style player. These are guys. How are you going to guard Boston, with Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis? And so, I think going back to your question, I think the Celtics. I think that, yes, they lose some depth, but remember, they still have Brogdon. I mean, to my knowledge, Malcolm Brogdon is going to play next year. You know what I mean? I don't know anything, inside information on that, but I mean, whether there's injury or not, it doesn't seem like he's going to miss the season or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be on the floor, I assume. I would assume he's going to play. So you still got Brogdon, and then you've still got all these other guys, Al Horford, Robert Williams,
Well, let's talk about the leadership thing, because that's really one of my biggest fears now. And look, I can see it going one of two ways. I can see it going where Jason Tatum ascends into the leadership role and Marcus Smart's not there to muddy the waters, and he takes it and runs with it, and the team is actually better off because of it. I can also see a world where Marcus Smart's not there, and now there's a power struggle, and it looks like the Spider-Man gif about who's actually got it and who doesn't, where Horford says, I'm the veteran, I need to take it, where Jaylen Brown says, I need to take it, where Tatum says, I need to take it, and the team ends up with a lot of infighting, and we end up with cliques, where it's like we saw with the Kyrie Celtics, where half the team follows Kyrie and half the team follows somebody else, and that's what I can't have again. I do worry about the leadership thing.
Look, I think this might be the last, chance here. I don't know what else you could do without really, really changing the roster. I mean, by that is your last chance of, Tatum, Horford, Jaylen Brown. Obviously, Marcus Smart's no longer in there, but that kind of whole team they had. I think this is their last chance to go win a championship. Remember, Kristaps Porzingis, I
We don't know yet. That's the other thing.
It just looks like this is going to come to an end here of like, all right, so here we go. Let's, got to pay Jaylen Brown at some point, but let's just go get to the finals again and go from there. I think that Celtics are in a place that everyone likes to say championship or bust. I mean, Brady, I think you agree. This is championship.
No, this is fully, I said that yesterday, this is fully championship or bust because they're going to pay Jaylen Brown the $295 million Supermax extension now. So he's going to get that this offseason. They've got Porzingis on a $36 million player opt-in deal, and they've still got Tatum on a max deal for the first time around. They'll have to pay him next year. So I don't know what money is left. I mean, the NBA salary cap is like hieroglyphics to me, but I don't know how much money is really left over. They need a point guard. They can't afford Fred VanVleet. Lonzo Ball's never going to play again, apparently. So I don't know who. Chris Paul's gone. Like, I don't know who's out there that they can get. I certainly don't know who they can afford.
Yeah, that's my one issue with Boston and Phoenix. I love the talent, but I don't like the lack of info. And I think that, someone like Chris Paul could have been great for Boston. And Phoenix get a Bradley Beal, but they lose Chris Paul. So it's like, look, the argument of point guard still matters. I don't think that Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown can be a full-on, LeBron point forward. I think they could play with spurts like that, but I don't think that that's what they are. I think that they're not, as gifted as a passer as, a LeBron or, some of the other, point forward style players. But look, they still got Peyton Pritchard. I know that there's been a lot of rumblings about he wants out or they want to trade him to play, but they still have Peyton Pritchard. They still have Malcolm Brogdon. So it's like, if they could figure out that, maybe you look, I mean, you know more than me about this. What if after this move they decide, hey, we're going to keep Pritchard? I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep him at this point. He's affordable, and he's one of the only guys on their roster that is. So let me get you out of here on a Victor Wembanyama question here. We were talking about him a little earlier. People are when we hear, oh, he's the greatest draft prospect of all time, people roll their eyes and say, oh, what about LeBron? And look, I certainly am in that camp. Like, I would say LeBron is the most hyped draft prospect, certainly, of my life. But the thing I will ask you, if Victor Wembanyama had been an American and had come through the AAU system and the high school system, and we knew who he was 5 years ago, don't you think that he would have had the LeBron-type treatment, and we would have been, it would be easier for people to comprehend that?
I think it's really for sure interesting. I don't know the exact answer there, but I think you're onto something about, like, look at Zion. That's a great example.
Yes.
Well, I told you last time on the show, I'm not saying this totally hindsight. I've never been a huge Zion fan in terms of the hype. I never thought he was a bad player, never thought he was a bad guy. Just didn't think, look, I didn't think he could stay healthy, which he hasn't proven to do yet. And I just didn't think he could truly be like a superstar, but to be transcendent, like the LeBron type he was getting. I just wasn't, excited about. But that was a great example. Look, we knew about Zion for years. We knew about him as a dunk star in high school, and then at Duke, he really showed us he could really, be a superstar. I mean, I don't think he was the number one player in that class. So it's tough. I mean, especially with the COVID years we've gone through too. It's like, look, I've heard a lot of people talk about this recently. It's like the last few drafts haven't been good because the scouting's all been off. Because I mean, everybody's been all over the place about for the last 2-3 years. I mean, things are settling down now where it's like, I think we're going to be back to the normal scouting days it was. I remember 2020, how could we really scout?
Yeah.
People that are smart, and that's where I'm going with Victor is you're people that are usually not hot take guys. Woj not a hot take guy, he's a reporter. But Woj comes out and says, he's a prospect for the possibly might have said something along the lines of like how he's one of the best, team prospects, ever. When you hear that from a guy like Woj, or guys just aren't, they're not up there to entertain, up there to report. It's interesting. So clearly they see something in him that is generational, and I'm excited to see. I think he's going to, look, we can agree on this, Greg. I think he's going to the perfect team for his potential.
Oh, I certainly would agree with that too. And look, I'll leave you on this with more of with kind of an extension of the opinion that I just had. I do think that, again, Zion is a perfect example, right? He came up through the U.S. system. We knew who he was. We had seen him on YouTube. We were able to hype him up. We didn't see Luka. We couldn't hype him up. We didn't see Wembanyama. We couldn't hype him up that way. Same way with baseball, right? There are plenty of great Latin American prospects, but you don't hear about them in the way you heard about Bryce Harper. I just think had Wembanyama been an American, you would have seen the full hype machine that you got for LeBron. Right now, it's taking people by surprise at the last minute, so people are all like, whoa, 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 that can't be true. If he had grown up here, you would have seen it for the last 5 years. I fully believe that.
That's a good point about the last few months, because that's a good point. That for LeBron, the Zion, the one we saw them, 3-4 years, we knew that even everyone knew who Andrew Wiggins was when he was like 16.
Yeah.
I think that's an exciting part of Victor here that I'm super excited about, is that, look, he could be, maybe he ends up not being a superstar, but if he does, I mean, he could really catch a lot of people by surprise. I mean, everybody knows about it now, but I'm talking about really like, whoa, like the Spurs are going to be in the playoffs next year type of surprise. I mean, that would be so big for the NBA if we could have another guy come in here. Remember, my first year coming in the NBA was 2018. I got lucky. I got Trae Young, Luka Doncic, SGA, all these guys. The last 3 drafts, I'm not trying to disrespect them, but the last 3 drafts have not been exciting.
I know you're a Hawks guy. Kevin Herter played hoops at my high school, was teammates with my brother in high school. Hawks made a huge mistake getting rid of him, and they're going to rue the day they traded him. Sacramento is enjoying the red velvet. Yeah. So, Ben Stinar, Fast Break on Fan Nation. We appreciate you taking a little extra time with us today. Thank you. There goes Ben over at Fast Break on Fan Nation. He was great. I don't usually do 15-minute interviews, but Ben was good. We let it run and had a good time with him. The leadership thing is real, man, and the money at point guard is real. That is my biggest concern. Ben, he says, I think they are better today. I don't think they're appreciably better. Maybe they're a little bit better. They certainly have better stars. There's no doubt about that. But they don't have a point guard that you can trust. They don't have a lot of bench scoring, and they don't have a lot of money available to address these things. And they didn't address it in the draft yesterday. So I certainly have concerns about the Celtics. But he does bring up good points about Porzingis and how diverse he is and his ability on defense. So there's a lot to like there. Hey, speaking of basketball, Monday we've got a full show, all 90 minutes again, because the Red Sox are off. We're going to talk with John Becker. We did our check-in this past week with Elisa Kresge, the UVM women's coach. We'll talk with John Becker, the UVM men's coach. We will do that on Monday. He'll be with me at 5:45. We'll come back and put the finishing touches on the show, get to the Red Sox lineups against the White Sox. So we'll do it next here on DEV.
Saturdays at 12:30. Don't try to do it alone in the garden. Call in with questions or advice or just to share your successes in the garden.
Brought to you in part by The Willie's Store, family owned since 1900 in Greensboro. Holly Construction, Gregory Drive, South Burlington. One call does it all. And your locally owned Montpelier Agway, East Montpelier Road.
Local businesses advertise with WDEV because they get results. Glenn Make of Snow Insurance Group tells us why he advertises with WDEV.
We're heavily involved in the community like we like to be. We feel they're an excellent partner for our advertising dollars. The market penetration is second to none in Central Vermont. We've been with them for almost 40 years, and we hope to be with them for another 40 years.
Advertising with WDEV gets results. Inquire today at WDEV at radiovermont.com.
At Fisher Investments, our clients know we have their backs. How do your clients know that? Because Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, the highest standard for a financial advisor. It means we're there for our clients and always put their interests first. So wait, you do it because you have to? No, we do it because it's the right thing to do. Our clients trust us with their retirement savings, and we know how important that responsibility is. So we take the time to really get to know them.
Get to know them how?
We make sure we understand their unique goals, finances, health, family, and lifestyle, so we can tailor their portfolio to their specific needs. Our goal is to help them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Sounds like a big responsibility. You must make big commissions then, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We have one single transparent fee that's structured so we do better when our clients do better. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you are switching to us. Fisher Investments, clearly different money management.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
WDEV is Vermont's preeminent news station. For 92 years, we've been at the forefront of reporting local, state, regional, and national news for listeners in Vermont. We're looking for that next generation newscaster to continue our legacy of excellence. Apply now by sending your materials to scornier@radiovermont.com. For job description and duties, log on to WDEVradio.com. WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group is an equal opportunity employer.
As Vermonters, we know that so much depends on the weather. When you need a reliable local weather forecast, it's literally at your fingertips with the WDEV weather phone. Locally dial 244-1172 or toll free at 1-800-585-1211. Blinding Hills Weather Forecast is just a phone call away on the WDEV weather phone, 244-1172 or 1-800-585-1211.
The Brady Farkas Show now has an interactive text line. Reach out now at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV, AM and FM, WDEVradio.com. Red Sox baseball comes up 20 minutes from now, 7:10. What's going to happen is at 7 o'clock, we will have the extended CBS News as always, which takes you until 7:09, and then figure out what I'm going to do for that last minute there. But 7:10 is when the pregame show starts. I would pay close attention today to how Lucas Giolito looks. Buster Olney told us earlier today that he doesn't think the White Sox are going to sell until basically they absolutely have to sell. But if they do sell, Giolito is a guy who will be available. The White Sox have said if they sell, they only want to trade guys who are in the final year of team control, and that is Giolito. He's under 30 years old. He's having a good bounce-back year. He didn't have a great year the last 2 years, but he's having a good bounce-back year this year. He's affordable, going to be a free agent at the end of the year. This is the kind of guy the Red Sox could go after if they're in it and if the White Sox are out of it. But again, he doesn't want, he says the White Sox don't want to trade until they absolutely have to. Red Sox made a couple of roster moves today. So remember Reese McGuire on the injured list yesterday. They brought up Caleb Hamilton. They brought up David Hamilton. Pablo Reyes goes on the injured list today. He's got the ab issue, kept him out of the game on Wednesday. He played yesterday, aggravated it, so he's gone. So could start seeing Kike Hernandez at shortstop more, although I do think we'll see David Hamilton there a good amount of time as well. White Sox are having just a very disappointing season. I mean, the White Sox made the playoffs in COVID year 2020 and in 2021 and got beaten the divisional round both years. They have way too many good players to be as bad as they are, and they are bad. Like, I watch the White Sox a lot because my dad's a White Sox fan. They're 12 games under 500. They're injured a lot. They make mistakes. They don't hold leads well. They don't have a great starting staff. The guys they're paying a lot of money to aren't doing well. So this White Sox team is down. If you're the Red Sox, you got to go take 2 or 3 again. Okay? You're better than them. You could sweep them. I will never say your team's got to go sweep unless they truly have to sweep. They got to take 2 or 3, though. This White Sox team is down on their luck. They got a lot of injuries. You got to go in and show them that they are what their record says they are. White Sox are 32-44. The Red Sox are 39-37. Brian Bayo pitches for the Sox. He's 4-4 with a 3.49. Lucas Giolito 5-4 with a 3.54 for the White Sox. Rob Refsnyder leads off today in left. He's playing against a righty. That's interesting and notable. Alex Verdugo's on the bereavement list. We're not going to see him until Tuesday. He lost his grandmother, so certainly our thoughts are with him. Refsnyder is in left at 277. Justin Turner plays first today. Masataka Yoshida is the DH. Rafi Devers is at third. Adam Duvall's in right again today with Connor Long at catcher. Christian Arroyo's at second. Kike Hernandez is in center today, and David Hamilton is at shortstop. With Verdugo gone, there is a way to get Kike into the outfield a little more regularly here for the next few days, but Verdugo, again, will be back on Tuesday. Former Red Sox player Andrew Benintendi leads off for the White Sox. He's in left. Tim Anderson is at second. Tim Anderson usually plays shortstop, but today he's at second. He had an injury. Maybe the injury is why he's only playing second. Luis Roberts, the best hitter in this lineup, hitting 263 with 18 homers. Eloy Jimenez has a ton of power. He's at 253. Andrew Vaughn is the first baseman. Gavin Sheets is in right. Jake Berger's at third. Elvis Andrus is at short. And Sevi Zavala is the catcher. White Sox can hit home runs. They strike out a ton. Okay, they strike out a ton. Roberts got 18 homers. Vaughn's got 11, and Berger's got 16. That's 3 players in double-figure home runs. They got 3 players over 35 RBIs, so they certainly have power. But Robert, Jimenez, Vaughn, Berger, they all will strike out a lot. That's going to do it for us. Go download the podcast channel, everybody. We're going to have our interview with Ben Stinar up there. We're going to have our interview with Buster Olney up there. We also got our full show podcast coming as well. We'll get to all of that on the podcast channel, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and WDEVradio.com. If you're hanging out in Waterbury tomorrow, you can see me. I'm going to be at the Not Quite Independence Day parade, so I look forward to being there. I'm judging the big parade in terms of which floats are the best in certain categories, so we'll have some fun with that. Hopefully the weather holds off. Roger Hill says it's going to rain. I hope for the first time ever Roger Hill is wrong, because I want the day to go off without a hitch and good fireworks at night. Hope you all have a safe weekend. Hope you all have a fun weekend. I will be back here on Monday. John Becker, the UVM men's basketball coach, will stop by. He'll be with me at 5:45. We'll check in on the Catamounts. The show is brought to you by Fecto Homes, the text line by Air Auto Sales. I'll see you on Monday. Go Sox.
Some things are just better together.